Hi, and welcome to Coaching Unveiled. I'm James Fenimore from Heart Posture Coaching, joined as always by Jason Donahue from Level Up Fusion Coaching. Jason, how are you?
I'm doing awesome. How about you today?
Doing great. We're hot down here in Florida, so it's a little spicy, but we got a great show today. We're going to be talking about seizing that moment. When the moment comes, are you ready to take it? So, Jason, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I think what we wanted to be able to share with folks today was this idea of how do you seize the moment? How are you prepared for that opportunity that will come up in life? And I think one of the first things we need to talk about is the mythology of what we see as spontaneous success. And so the idea of preparation creates the conditions for luck, but when we see things like America's Got Talent, when we see things like The Voice, when we see things like any of the singing shows, and it looks like this overnight success comes in, that is really a mythology. What people don't see is all the hours of preparation and practice to get into a position for when the opportunity appears to be able to seize it. And that's what we wanted to be able to talk about with folks today is how do you create your ready state? I know we've talked about before from the ideas of lessons from CrossFit in physical fitness is, they have something they call TRS, the readiest state. And what we're talking about is whatever aspect or area in your life, how can you create that for yourself? And number one, destroy the mythology of just it was manna from heaven, lucky moment, and I rose to that occasion without preparation.
Yeah, it's really crucial to know that you're in a position to succeed and to win, showing up is half the battle, right? And if you're prepared, that's the other half of the battle. So you got to be there and you got to be ready. Denzel Washington has an unbelievable quote, and it's if you keep showing up to the barbershop, you're eventually going to get your hair cut. And I don't know if that's actually his quote or if he stole it from somebody else, but he says it a lot and I love it. So I don't want to discredit anything, but man, it really resonates because the fact is, if you keep showing up, you're eventually going to get your shot. But if you're also preparing for your shot, think about how much better that shot's going to be when you get it. But
Mhm.
that doesn't mean when you get your shot, if you don't feel fully prepared, to turn it down. It just means you need to be honest with yourself that, okay, if I need to ask for help, if I need to seek guidance, if I need to do research, do it. Don't fake it till you make it, but also don't turn down the opportunity. Just be honest with where your blind spots are and seek out people that can maybe help you and push you forward. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I like that. And I think that's the second principle we've talked about is say yes before you're ready.
Yeah.
There are many things I think that people can relate to in their own lives that just by being present, it was amazing what happened seemingly magically after that. Again, show up to the barbershop, eventually you're going to be able to get your turn in the chair. But saying yes before you're ready also helps destroy this idea of I have to be perfectly ready to be able to take my shot. Anything in life is an iterative learning process. And so what we're saying is that say yes and with boundaries and acknowledgement to the people that are providing you an opportunity. Yes, I want to be able to take this opportunity, and I will acknowledge that when I'm approaching my edge of competence, that I'll be able to ask questions. I'll own it. I'll search for resources, and you know what? I'm willing to fail forward. That's such a different radical approach than not even stepping up to the plate to begin with. And that's a big part of the second principle we talked about again is say yes before you're prepared. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, before you're ready, not prepared.
Before
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's good. Hey, both kind of work. Just say yes. We'll figure it out afterwards.
Yeah.
This is something I've coached. I believe you've coached as well. When it comes to imposter syndrome, I tell people all the time, nobody's born a CEO, right? They don't come out that way. They don't come out
Yeah.
barking orders. Well, I guess we all kind of come out barking orders, but we don't come out prepared to do that and
Yeah.
and knowing what we're doing. So when you see these people in these super accomplished positions or these really, really high C-suite level positions or these entrepreneurs, they had to figure it out at some point. And I guarantee you, they were in a position where they didn't know everything that they were doing. In some cases, they might not have known anything of what they were doing. But what they did know was, I have to work at it, I have to learn, and I have to figure it out. And like you said, they're going to fail forward, right? They
Mhm.
are going to fail. They are going to fall on their face, but they're going to make sure they learn from it and that they produce better from it, right? They're going to take lessons and they're going to grow from it. And that's what makes them hyper successful. Because when we play scared, we lose. That is just across the board, whether we're talking business, sports, or life. That is just the way it works. When you play scared, you're going to lose, and that's what imposter syndrome is. It's playing scared. I can't do this. I don't know what to do. It's like, no, I don't know what to do, but I will know what to do. I don't know how to achieve this, but I will achieve it. I will figure it out. I will find someone that knows what to do, and I will learn from them, and I will seek their resources. It's just a simple reframe. It's okay to not know what to do, but it's also even better to acknowledge that you will eventually figure it out.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's a great point because I do think part of the reframe is the idea of I'm reinventing myself as a part of readiness. So the idea of what got me to this level of success may not, will not get me to the next level of success. There's part of me I need to reinvent and reiterate up. So if it's belief patterns, and you talking about imposter syndrome or imposterization is, that I am not 95% world class in skill set A, which means that's a shutdown versus I am a learner on the pathway to becoming there's a radical different approach there. And reinvention allows us to have grace and understanding about we will fail forward. And it's not failure doesn't have to become the fear, it becomes the feedback mechanism about how do I dial in better for the next time. But we have to be willing to who do I need to be next to achieve that next level? What skill sets do I need to have? What beliefs do I need to have? What environments do I need to have? What relationships do I need to have? That reinventioning of self, I don't know if that's a word, but we're going to make it up. That reinventioning of self is part of the readiness process.
Yeah. It's embracing that curiosity and it's being honest with yourself.
Mhm.
A lot of people struggle with that. They may say, I'm great at everything. And they don't really do that, look in the mirror and say, you know what? When it comes to financial stuff, it's like watching paint dry. Doesn't work for me. But I'm really good at the creativity. I'm really good at running a meeting. I'm really good at things like that. But when it comes to numbers, it doesn't jive with me. So that's a shortfall for you. So you're going to need to lean on a CFO or lean on a really trusted financial advisor. That's where you're deficient. And really, that it's never going to be your thing because you're just so not like allergic to it. So you want to find somebody you trust, or it's the opposite. It interests you, but you just don't understand it. So now you want to learn about it, but you really need to understand where you're deficient, but be honest about it. So many of us don't like to say that, right? We don't want to say what we're not good at. We like to tell people what we are good at. Guilty. Who's not, right? We love to show off, but we don't like to, show up for the work. That's where the real growth happens, and that's where these super impressive people excel. I've talked about this many times. Whenever you hear these stories about these like 1B successful people that get to meet those stratospheric successful people, like the 1% of the 1%, they finally get to meet like some like Warren Buffett type, right? And they go, I got to have this conversation with Warren Buffett. I finally made to ask him all these questions. And they go, and I left a 1 hour meeting with Warren Buffett. You know what I learned about Warren Buffett? Nothing. You know what Warren Buffett learned about me? A whole lot. Because all he did was ask me questions, and all I did was answer them. Because he's still at this level at 93 years old or whatever he is, wants to learn and learn and learn. Even he knows he doesn't know everything still. That guy could teach and talk for years at this point about all his accomplishments and all he knows. And he still wants to hear from you and he still wants to learn from you. So think about that mindset. And now think about us and where we're at in our lives and our careers. And we're ready to talk and show off. Come on, guys. We need to be learning. We need to be acknowledging if they're willing to show off that they don't know everything, what does that mean for us? That's not a deficiency. That's a superpower. And that's how we need to start thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think that curiosity over competence is is very vital, because how many times can we look at innovations and inventions in life where, when we're just focused on competence, we're narrowing our information and specialty scope. But how many things have been invented because somebody was curious about looking at it in a different way? Or they were trying to solve a different problem and said, I wonder if that would work over there. Again, look at one of the most popular 3M products ever made, Post-its, that people use, and how many little pieces of sheets of paper get used every single day. But that was a quote unquote mistake, because what they were trying to invent, 3M, the company, was a super glue that would stick for super long periods of time. And what they found out was one that would just stick for a little bit of time. But they found a way to use that because curiosity was more important than competence, in that area. And so everything you just brought up about what is it that you can be curious about, that will lead to competence, not only in the area you'd like to specifically focus on, but look at parallel areas. I can't tell you how many times where I've got stuck on a decision or problem solve moment where what I did is I stopped, walked away, randomly opened up a magazine, and all of a sudden there was the answer. And the magazine had nothing to do with what I was doing, but it was just like, that's the moment. And so that curiosity aspect for being prepared to be ready to take your shot is super valuable. So I think those are great points that you just brought up.
Sure, and curiosity is what keeps companies alive. I mean, that's how companies pivot, like you just said. They could have been working on that super glue forever. I think of something like Tesla today. I was talking to my wife about this. I go, what does Tesla do now? Are they a car company? She's like, yeah, of course they're a car company. I go, no, they're a robotics company. That's
Mhm.
what they ultimately are. They're a robotics company. They are making robots. They just happen to be in the form of cars right now. They'll eventually be in the form of humanoid robots because that's what they're also building right now because of all the data they've aggregated. Now, if you really want to go down a crazy rabbit hole, what is Twitter or X? They are now an AI company. And then when you talk about SpaceX, it's like all of a sudden we're going to be terraforming Mars with robots and AI. And it's like all of a sudden now it's like, okay, well, Elon Musk is a Martian. Like he's really already on Mars mentally. But 15 years ago, Tesla was a car company. That's all it was a car company. And if you had car people running Tesla, it would, till this day, be an electric car company. I'm sure it would be a wonderful electric car with a wonderful battery, but that's all it would do. We wouldn't have robo taxis. I wouldn't have a robot about to do my laundry in a year. And believe me, I'm waiting for that. But I mean, that's the difference between these companies that last 100 years and these companies that do really, really great work for 20 years. So when you have that curiosity and you have that drive and desire to continuously learn and pivot, that's when your career will flourish. That's when you hear about these people that were like, I was an HR manager, now I'm a CEO or a CTO or a CFO. It's like, wait, you were an HR manager, not wow, that's great. But look at the way you were able to pivot and continuously pivot. Or I know a CTO or CIO. He was the facilities manager of a company. Okay. If you don't know what a facilities manager is, that's the guy that picks out where you sit. And then when you have something wrong with your desk, he fixes your desk. And now he's a C-suite level person. How do you do that? Curiosity, pivoting, learning, and showing up. And look at that. So you can attack your career from anywhere as long as you're willing to learn and show up.
Mhm. Yeah, I think those are great summary points that you just laid out right there. And again, remember that there's a mythology of the spontaneous success. Very, very rarely does that ever happen, but you've got to challenge your mythology and understand that this is a process of growth, not instantaneous microwave success. Because I think we all know the difference between the taste of microwave food and home cooking and crock pot food. You can survive on microwave food for a little bit, but it does not taste good. When you're sitting there preparing yourself for the ready state, follow these principles that we've shared with you today.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. It was a great way to close up and take that with you. Just stay curious, people, because that's the best way to be. Thank you so much. As always, DM us or comment below with any topics or questions you may have. We'd love to cover them. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.